In this video, I'm going to show you how to set the Sony RX10v up for point-and-shoot nature photography. Now, the Sony is not a typical point-and-shoot camera or bridge camera. It has a much larger sensor. It has a faster lens by far than most of the bridge cameras. And it has way more options and more possibilities in the menus. The first step on any camera is to set your mode dial to program. All of the modifications I'm going to do here are done in the program mode. Now on the Sony you have two different ways of setting things up. One is by using the menu, and that has every feature possible. The other is by using the function button. And that has just the functions that you're likely to need to change anywhere near frequently. It's way easier to make these changes using the function button. So I'm going to show you how to do it. Function button is here. The very first thing we're going to do is set the drive mode or the shooting mode to low speed auto. And you just press the center button here and you have your choices: single frame, timers, and then the various continuous shooting modes. And again, I set it to low speed continuous. Then on this camera you might want to try animal eye focus. To do that you have to go to the menu, and it's in camera 1, page 6, and it's this last one down here on the bottom. I have face priority on and it's set to animal. I'll show you how you can change that though. This gives you two choices: animal or human. And as I say, you might want to try animal just in case. Then I also set the focus area to a small area in the center of the screen. Again, we can do that here using the function button, focus area, and you have different choices here. I use flexible spot medium or expandable flexible spot. While it's highlighted like that, I can move it. I keep mine in the center, press this button, and it locks it in the center. Use the function button, choose focus area, and set it to expandable flexible spot, and then I can move that if I want. Keep it in the center, press the button, and it is set. The Sony has different choices for how the focus is actually accomplished, and that's this button on the front right here. For most of my wildlife I use continuous. Continuous uses both the phase and the contrast detect autofocus and gives you generally in most light the best and most precise focus. You can also try auto. Auto switches back and forth between phase and contrast autofocus depending on the light levels and the subject. In some light that works better. It worked better for me in Africa, where the regular continuous setting worked better for me in Central America. Then we're going to set ISO to auto. Now, on this camera, I can refine auto. I can have a minimum and a maximum auto, but I can also set a minimum shutter speed or change the rate at which ISO changes as the light level changes. To do that, you have to go to the menu, and then you're going to go to camera 1, screen 7, exposure 1, go down to ISO, auto minimum shutter speed. And your first option is just fast, faster, slower, slow, standard, fast. I put it on fast. But here you can also, if you prefer, set a minimum shutter speed. For most birds and wildlife, a 500th would be sufficient. Now let's go back there, because I do prefer it just on fast. Then we're going to set the exposure area. Again, function button. And that is this one, metering mode. And again, you have choices here. Multi-center, large spot, screen average, entire screen average, or highlight. I'm going to set it to spot, and again on spot I have standard, large, large. So I'm going to set it on large spot. And I do that because then I can link the exposure and the focus point, so that when I move the focus point, the metering will also move to where I've set it. With it in program, the camera is going to determine the ISO, the shutter speed, and the aperture. It will almost always use the widest aperture available, so you get the highest shutter speed possible. Finally, I just leave white balance on auto. And that's my settings for birds and wildlife. When I've made all those settings, I go to the menu. We're still in camera 1. And I save those settings. You can choose 1, 2, or 3. I put my birds and wildlife in memory 1, but you can do whatever you want. Then to use your saved settings, you put the control knob in MR. That gives you this screen, and you select the appropriate memory, and there you have it. And that's it. That's how you set this particular camera, the Sony RX10v, up for my birds and wildlife settings.